Caroline, you ready? All right, hi everyone. My name is Elena Statue. I'm the curator of the Cleveland Hub of Global Shapers, and we are one of 3 organizers of this media campaign along with Black environmental leaders and FreshWater Cleveland, where we're talking about climate change and environmental justice in Northeast Ohio. Later on here in the chat, I'll post a little bit of info about us as Global Shapers. We're a global young professional organization affiliated with the World Economic Forum, as well as our fiscal sponsor and advisory partner, Black environmental leaders. But I want to spend most of the time tonight talking to our amazing panelists. So I'm going to kick it off to Courtney, and she will introduce all of them.
Yep. Well, thanks everyone for joining tonight. We're hoping that tonight's a good conversation about water health, quality, and equity and access in our region. I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, but I'll call them off. And if you have any questions during the conversation, please feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll try and get to them as I see them. So we'll start first with Liz Barlick from Cleveland Water. If you wouldn't mind providing your name, what your position and organization is, and then what your program organization does today in the water, health, quality, and equity space.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Barlick. I'm a communications and public affairs manager with Cleveland Water. Cleveland Water is the city of Cleveland owned drinking water utility. We provide service to all of Cuyahoga County, parts of 3 other counties, about 1.4 million people altogether. So we are the largest drinking water utility in Ohio and the 10th largest municipally owned drinking water provider in the United States. So we care a lot about water and Lake Erie, where we pull water from to treat it for drinking. So we have a big system to supply all those people, a lot of infrastructure to maintain as part of it.
Great, thanks, Liz. Pauletta, we'll go to you next.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Pauletta Hubbard. I am the manager of customer service at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. The sewer district chemically treats wastewater, and also we try to prevent stormwater runoff issues within the region. We service a total of 62 communities in the area. And that's it. Sorry.
Great, thanks, Pauletta. And then we'll go to Joe next.
Was that me?
Yes.
Oh, all right. My name is Joseph Patrick Meisner. I'm an attorney. I've been involved in utilities since 1966. I represent individual customers as well as groups that try to change utilities so that they are more beneficial and available to the public. I've been involved in water, trying to represent people before the water board. I'm quite sure we may get some questions later on that. I just want to show you one of my images that I'm using. This is a gallon. I made it milk because it's hard to see water, but I want you all to realize that every day, each of you uses 82 of these gallons of water in your life, 82 of these. Okay, I have other objects I'll show later. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Joseph. And then we'll go to Robin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin Williams. I am with CHN Housing Partners. I'm the program manager of the water and sewer programs there. And what we do is we sign people up for our affordability programs that we administer for Cleveland Division of Water and the Sewer District. And we also sign people up for our sewer crises program, their sewer crises program as well.
Great, thank you, Robin. And then Max, last but not least.
Hi, everyone. I'm Max Herzog. I'm a program manager with Cleveland Water Alliance. We're a nonprofit economic development group based in Northeast Ohio, but working across the Lake Erie region. And our focus is on water technology and innovation. So specifically as it pertains to equity issues, we're really interested in any technologies that can help increase the affordability of drinking and wastewater or mitigate environmental justice issues.
Great, thanks, Max. So whoever wants to go first is more than welcome to, but we'd like to start off with the future of what water health and equity could look like in our region. We all need more positive stories about what the future could look like, especially with climate change. So how do you envision the future of water health and access in our community in a way that's realistic, but also hopeful?
Well, as an attorney, I'll start off real quick. My hope is that conservation, environmentalism, the other great qualities that we're trying to serve, that we will help to make water more available to people, more water available to people. And of course, this is a global kind of problem as well. In other places, they would love to have the water we have. We actually are about 4% of the population in the world in the United States, but we have 7% of the fresh water. And a lot of that is due to the Great Lakes here. So I'm hoping we can come up with ideas, and I take things right from the individual up. So my hope is that each individual understands you have a water mission. It could be as simple as in the morning when you're shaving for men, that you don't just simply waste the water and have it keep running while you're lathering up or something. And for ladies, I would just look at showers. We waste so much water there. And each day we waste so much water. So my goal really is to help each of us individually understand our duty. Thank you.
That brings up such a good point in that we are incredibly lucky to have Lake Erie. Like, such a phenomenal resource on many levels in Cleveland, in Cuyahoga County, Northeast Ohio. And because we don't suffer as like acutely as some systems do, you know, we don't have to worry about the conservation that the Western states have. I mean, that is I'm glad I don't have to deal with water and the requirements for not having, you know, not running your water and the mandates. And in addition, Lake Erie is an incredibly stable source. So one of the advantages for us in terms of treating and delivering drinking water is that Lake Erie isn't prone to wild swings in changes. There's certainly algal blooms in the Western Basin. That's because Lake Erie is so shallow, and in the Central Basin here in Northeast Ohio, we can experience hypoxia because of that. That's relatively new. I mean, year over year, Lake Erie is pretty much the same, which means our treatment pretty much is the same, which means we don't have to spend a lot of money on all sorts of different treatment things. So I always tell people that, like, in the drinking water industry, the thought used to be, okay, you have to be concerned with water treatment, making water safe, and water distribution, delivering water. But we've really expanded that thought to like source water. We have to be concerned about our source of water, because if that's not safe and secure, it makes our job that much harder, which in turn means there's not safe water available to people. So the health of Lake Erie, I guess my point is, like, we're at a good place where we're working from a place of prevention and not correction. And so then maybe we don't get like the crazy headlines that Jackson and Toledo and everybody does, but that doesn't mean we don't need to be vigilant and keep an eye on it and be concerned about things like algal blooms and microplastics.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about, we have such luck of being here and such privilege, and with that luck and privilege also comes a strong responsibility to safeguard those resources and also make sure that they're accessible. So I don't know if our partners who work particularly more on access programs want to jump in, and how we're trying to use the great resource that we have to provide a good life, a good quality of life for folks who need water access here, which is all of us.
So I can jump in. Equity to me, it means equal access to safe and clean water, which is a basic human need or means for everyone, and everyone has that right to have it. Ensuring that we have access and provisions of programs and services to folks who might not otherwise be able to access or afford those resources. So moving forward, just being able to have programs so that people who can't afford to pay the regular rates, and they can receive a discount rate and still be able to, again, get the same quality of water as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. And just for those of us who might not be as familiar, would you mind going into what some of those programs look like in practice for someone who's applying?
Yes, so we have a water and sewer affordability program. That program provides a 40% discount rate on your water and sewer. And then we also have the sewer crises program, which offers a one-time payment of up to $300 for persons who are in a crisis situation. They will receive up to $300 on their sewer bill.
Yeah, that's great.
Robin,
and I think, oh, sorry,
don't you have to be eligible for those programs, Robin?
Yes, for the water affordability program, you do have to be a homeowner. You must occupy your home. You must meet the income eligibility criteria of 200% FPL. For the sewer affordability program, it is open to homeowners and renters. The income eligibility guidelines are up to 250%. Again, you must occupy your home and show that you're financially responsible for paying that bill. The sewer crises program, it's eligible to anyone who has experienced a hardship within the past 6 months. It doesn't have an income guideline, but you must show that you are responsible for paying your sewer bill.
Okay, great. And then we just had a question about FPO, and I believe it's federal poverty line.
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
Great, thanks. And then Joseph, I think Utilities for All played a really strong part in making sure that folks still had access to water in the beginning of the pandemic. Would you be able to speak to that story at all?
Well, we have many different views in the group, but most of us felt very strongly that there shouldn't be any disconnection of essential services. And so for gas and electric, we were urging that the various agencies not disconnect anyone, find some way of helping them. And the thing with the water, you've got to, and especially in a pandemic when everybody's confined indoors and need water so drastically, that again, that you not disconnect. So that was one of our big efforts. Then the other effort that we've been concerned about, there is a water board. If you don't agree with your bill or there's some problem, and once in a while we get people that have a tremendous leak. It's not their fault. And they may live in substandard housing, et cetera, but they get a tremendous leak. And that leak is all added up on the meter. And then these people get some enormous bill. So we were trying to fight those and trying to get the company to realize that if it's not the person's fault, really you should forgive the entire amount that seems to be an excessive amount of over normal usage. So our group has been open for individuals that need to know their rights and then need to be able to have someone to help them express those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that we have some sort of net that can help catch. Sorry, Liz, I saw you just came off mute.
Well, I just want to put this discussion in a little context in that equity and affordability isn't just assistance programs. Assistance programs are super important, especially in the city of Cleveland when you have such a large percentage of the population is low income or even poverty level. But that's the end of the line, right? So affordability, equity is a strategy. It's in everything that we do. And the number one thing being delivering safe water to every home. Because if you don't have water you can trust, then you're going to buy bottled water. And that's significantly more expensive than tap water. Tap water costs a penny a gallon. A bottle of water is, I don't know, $2 at the corner store. So that's step one is to make sure we have safe water that can be reliably delivered. We have 5,300 miles of water mains that we have to maintain. And our only avenue to do that right now is user rates or the bills customer pays. So to make safe water and deliver it so that we have that service. And then the same thing, and Pauletta can talk to this on the other end, and then take it away. So it's not in your basement. So you don't have to haul it out in buckets. That's step one. And then throughout there, advocating for federal infrastructure dollars to help reduce the burden on customers and looking at assistance programs and how those can help. So it's a long-term overarching strategy.
Yeah, that's such a key point. And I think this might be a good time to bring in Max to talk a little bit about some of the work that the Water Alliance is doing. Because when I think about safe water, I think about source water, like you were saying, Liz. I also think about the infrastructure that's needed that has to be safe, and particularly with lead lines and lead replacement, and the amount that that's going to cost our utilities, and the way that will eventually have to be paid for by someone, whether it's a federal program or it ends up being passed on to the consumer. So Max, I don't know if you mind talking about maybe some of the Water Alliance work in lead pipes.
Yeah, for sure. I think folks are bringing up really important points in terms of the various nodes in the system at which water can become inequitable. It's protecting our source water, as folks said. It's making sure we're investing in our infrastructure so the upkeep of that is not falling on our lowest income residents. But a lot of it is also, making sure that we're thinking about and addressing potential impacts in terms of environmental health and environmental justice. And one of the things that we look to do at Cleveland Water Alliance, in great partnership with Cleveland Water, the drinking water utility that Liz is representing, is piloting new technologies that can help more quickly, easily, and cheaply identify where there is risk for lead line connections in our system. As Liz, I think, can probably tell you better than I, there's not a whole lot of lead in the city's system, but there are a lot of old pipes in our houses and connecting our houses to the public system. And it really is tremendous cost for individual homeowners or the city itself to actually look at assessing and replacing all of those lines. And so one of the things that we've been able to do with Cleveland Water is set up a test bed where new technologies can be tested out to evaluate their effectiveness at, without breaking ground, evaluating whether there is a lead line in place or not, so that the city can, create a hit list that'll make it easier for them to prioritize these investments. But I do want to reiterate, sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
I do want to reiterate what Liz was speaking to in terms of the importance of investment in infrastructure at the state and federal level. One of the really big challenges that our utilities face is that they are dependent on ratepayers to solve these problems unless there's money coming from other sources. And it's really important that we as a country and we as a society are really prioritizing investments in water infrastructure the same way that we've historically prioritized investments in the electric grid, in cultivation of fossil fuels. These are things that have seen tremendous support at the state and federal levels, while our drinking water and wastewater systems have been left to individual communities to fund themselves.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too, Max, especially like the way we fund some things through Department of Transportation, like highways, and we can fund those systems really well. But some of the systems that are very critical for basic life, we historically haven't, even though there is some really good opportunities that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and then also the Inflation Reduction Act that has to do with modernizing some of this and making some of these options more affordable. And by affordable, I mean at the city level. I still think that you can all support it a little bit more. We do have a question in the chat, so I'm going to read it off. So Rhonda would like to know that from an environmental perspective, what is the biggest challenge we as humans face in regards to water? Is it access? Is it quality? And Rhonda, that's a really big question. And I think the answer can be a little bit different. As you were talking before, for Northeast Ohio versus the world, we don't have the drought that you see in some places. We don't have the extreme flooding or monsoons that you see in other places. So if anyone wants to talk to what our global challenges, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we can talk about Northeast Ohio challenges.
I can certainly start the conversation. It's really hard to point to, a single biggest environmental threat. But certainly here in Northeast Ohio and across the Lake Erie region, we need to be thinking about, challenges with water quality in our source water. As Liz said, we are really blessed to have Lake Erie and sort of access to the Great Lakes Basin in terms of, this incredible freshwater resource that is really reliable. But Lake Erie is the most impacted of all the Great Lakes by human activity. And we've seen, with our neighbors to the west in Toledo and other communities in that area, the tremendous impacts that harmful algal blooms can have on not just, recreational waters and the economy, but, direct health impact if treatment isn't pursued actively. And knowing that we're more prepared now since the 2014 crisis, the real cost that we're talking about is dramatically increased water treatment costs that again have to fall on ratepayers in the current model. And so making sure that we're doing our part as part of the Lake Erie community to address these challenges so that harmful algal blooms don't become a yearly problem for us here in Cleveland the way they are in Toledo, I think is really critical.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I think you're on mute, Joseph.
One of the factors that I think is very important is for people to understand how all of this is connected together. Just let me give you one example. Suppose we want to use more water, whatever we want to use it for, watering the petunias or whatever. Okay, so we get that more water. Well, how do we get that? We have to use electricity to get it. So the more water we use, the more electricity we need. That electricity has to be generated. And something like 40% of our electricity goes toward helping with the water being able to be available. And they use the water in terms of having to cool the plants to turn out the electricity. So there's a connection. More water means more electricity, means higher bills for electricity, more plants are needed. And in order to get those plants, you need to have more water in order to be able to service them. So I do think it's really important that we understand and put together how this system really works. One other factor, I just want to make one minor little point. I'm going to give these whenever I can. A lot of people, they eat their dinner and they've got food left over. What should you do with that? A lot of us just put it down the drain there and hope that the grinder grinds it all up. The idea really is you should take that and add it to your compost pile. And that does a couple of things. One, you don't have as much junk going down in the sewers and as much junk that has to be somehow filtered out. And number two, compost pile can always be good for ways of helping you grow your plants and vegetables. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. So there's some questions in the chat that I want to get to. Pauletta, I think this one is for you as our resident sewer district representative. Elena would like to know about with NEORSD, but the best Twitter account in town is working on in terms of affordability, equity, and quality, especially when it comes to end of the pipe sewer water and storm water, which again, I think this will open up a really good conversation for us to talk about treatment again.
Okay, the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District is consistently, trying to find new, innovative, cost-effective ways to chemically treat wastewater, out in the public. And we're also working hand in hand with other agencies to make sure that the rates are equitable, as well as we're advocating for lower rates. We're even out in the community giving, having utility assistance resource fairs where we can have people come with all of the utilities, Cleveland Water, Dominion, the electric company, just to try to, figure out a way how to help people to pay their rates. So if they pay their rates, then of course, this will increase the impact on our infrastructure and we're able to, do more projects. And out in the community, the teams are getting out there in terms of stormwater. They're trying to, figure out ways how to prevent erosion and stormwater runoff and also prevent flooding. And so they have a lot of projects in the works, but in terms of affordability, we are working on new and innovative ways. And we're also getting out there face-to-face with the public just to make sure that people know who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. Because a lot of people just think, if I run some water down the drain, I don't know what happens to it. But you need to know what happens, what the process is, We have a festival once a year. Next year it's going to be, I'm just making a shameless plug, September 23rd in 2023, we'll have our Clean Water Fest. You should get out and come and check out what we do, why we do it, our different departments, the lab, we have tours of our plants. So you get a chance to see exactly what you're paying for. And I think that's important. You know, things like electricity, when you cut on a switch, you know what you're paying for. Something in terms of sewer, you really don't know what it takes to treat wastewater. And it's huge. It takes a lot of different pieces and parts and people to take care of this. So just, yeah.
Pauletta makes such a good point, kind of going back to like the lack of infrastructure is like, historically, this stuff is out of sight, out of mind, right? Mm-hmm. You don't see how your water gets to your tap. You don't see how it gets carried away. You don't see the processes that they go through to be cleaned, whether it's for drinking or for putting back into the environment. And that's part of the lack of infrastructure problem. But I'll also plug when Cleveland Water does our open house at the beginning of May, because there is no one thing that like is as impressive or I don't know, just as impressive as seeing, in my opinion, the drinking water treatment process and the wastewater treatment process. They're so they're doing one thing, right? Cleaning water, but there's so many steps and there's so many people involved. So if you have the opportunity, highly recommend.
Yeah, it's such a modern marvel. It really is incredible, all the steps that go into getting water just to a place where we can use it the way that we need to live life. And I think also we hear about the harmful algal blooms and we hear about the stormwater runoff that gets into Lake Erie, but we don't necessarily hear about the fact that the sewer district, I think it's somewhere in the billions that you guys have been investing. For some reason, the number 18 billion is sticking in my mind, I think from a panel, but that could be off, about the amount that we're investing to try to prevent stormwater runoff from reaching our lake, from reaching our source water, and the incredible infrastructure lift it takes to do that, and try to preserve some of our water sources for future generations. I also think about, I'd like to pivot to this next question about how can all of us get more involved in water health, quality, equity, and advocacy work. And part of that to me is also thinking about the ways that you can plant native plants in your tree lawn to try to help filter out some of the rainwater before it gets to the sewer. Like, what are some, I think a lot of times we give up our individual agency and what we can do when these problems or these challenges just seem so big. Like, how can I as one person affect the way that water is treated and accessed in our community when there are tangible steps that each of us can be taking, whether if you have access to a garden or you can call up your representative. And so I was just wondering if anyone on this panel would want to talk about how each of us can get more involved in water health, equity, and advocacy work.
I can hop in on this one if no one else wants it. Just becoming more knowledgeable and engaging with local agencies that promote health and equity throughout the region, subscribing to newsletters, and just getting involved more in their localities to educate people on ways to conserve and advocating for the less fortunate as well in terms of rates, so they have the ability to pay, these water and sewer bills. So just, becoming more educated, because there are a lot of things that are out there that you didn't really know, like the greater Cleveland Water Equity Partners. We have different agencies that come together and meet. You think about NOACA, places like that. So there's a lot of agencies, and there's also non-for-profits. I think Local Drink Tap is another agency that also works to be equitable and get water for individuals. I know Liz knows a little bit more about it than I do, but I know she probably has a take on that as well.
Oh, I mean, the organizations you listed are great. There's a lot of people in Cleveland working in this space. The two things that come to my mind, Courtney, you listed a lot of, I know a lot of the stuff can seem overwhelming. Like, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this. But a lot of this stuff is, like Joe talked about before, is circular. So stuff like recycling helps in so many ways, because when you don't recycle and you recycle right, I mean, besides all the waste side of it, which I'm not familiar with, but then like plastics end up our environment and our waterways, and the majority of, you know, trash that's collected on Lake Erie beach cleanups is plastic, and then it doesn't go away, it breaks down and gets smaller. And now we're really looking at, you know, microplastics and drinking water. Microplastics are everywhere, right? There's no place on Earth, Antarctica included, where you haven't found microplastics. And what's the health impacts of that? So, I mean, like planting native plants helps prevent erosion. Like, all that stuff is good in like multiple levels. I'm gonna really plug for advocacy with your legislatures, because infrastructure money is so important. Like, right now, I know with the infrastructure bill, which is great, the bipartisan infrastructure bill at the federal level, there's money for lead line replacement. Cleveland has a lot of lead service line. Your service line is the connection from the main water main in the street to your home. That's the only, besides that, some home plumbing kind of, that's the only place where you're going to find lead. So you have the city side, which is the utility's responsibility, the customer side, which is the customer's responsibility. So there's funding to replace that, but it is not allocated. It's allocated according to like existing formulas for general water infrastructure money, not, oh, hey, Illinois is the state with the most lead lines, Ohio is second, and that's how we've distributed it. It's not that. And I mean, the EPA and the Biden administration have come to Ohio saying, we're replacing all your lead lines with this money. It's not, we're not. There's not enough money. We need like $1 billion just to replace lead money in Cleveland. And the state of Ohio is only getting like $750 million. So, I mean, we're going to do what we can. We're going to get as much as we can. You know, it's actually kind of a competitive through the state process, but there needs to be more, because the only other avenue we have is to increase rates, which we don't want to do, but also we have to make sure people have safe water. Now, thankfully, we treat the water with a chemical called orthophosphate, forms a coating on the inside of pipes that prevents leaching. So the water in Cleveland is safe, but we know any amount of lead presents a risk. We want that risk to be zero. So that's going to mean removal. And that's an expensive process.
You know, I think Liz is right and stressing some things that people can do. And I really believe there's a lot of things we can individually do fitting into our life that I'll give just another couple of simple examples. One is when you take care of the dishes after eating, the idea is don't just put all of that food down the drain. You can go ahead and scrape. If you scrape the plate, that's better, they say, in terms of water usage, than taking the water and keeping, the water coming out the faucet, trying to wipe off the dishes. That's one. Another one is we like to clean outside our houses. And you see people out there with the hose and they're spraying it down and all. That's a tremendous waste of water. Why don't you use a broom, sweep the walk and sweep the whatever so that it's clean, and then you can use like a bucket with some water in it if you want to swab it off a bit. My point is that we can individually do an awful lot in order to preserve our water resource.
Yeah, just remember not to put those grass clippings in the sewer.
Which ones?
Yeah. Just don't forget, do not put grass clippings in the sewer, please. Thank you.
What should you do with grass clippings? I always like to have the lawn mowed at some point. So what's the best idea with the grass?
Leave them on your lawn as mulch.
Yes.
Just mow them over.
and you can compost them too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another idea.
And then I'm kind of curious from CHN Housing Partners, Robin, from your perspective, what are some ways that folks can continue to advocate for affordability in some of your programming?
Okay, so what we currently have are water champions that are out in the community. They are meeting people where they are. They're actually, this week we finally got them stationed at different libraries so that when people are, at the libraries, or if they're stationed there on a regular basis, so that if people have questions about their water bills or are interested in signing up for our programs, they can actually go there to sign up for those programs. I have one champion who's at the Fulton branch on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Another champion, she's going to be at the Rice branch from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Mondays and 10:30 to 12:30 on Tuesday.
Awesome. And also, just again, champions are folks who help people navigate like water access, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They're community members who are out in the public. They're there to answer any questions that persons may have regarding their water and sewer bills, and they can follow up and follow through and get those answers to them.
Awesome. Thank you. And so I think everyone has listed some really great things. And I think sometimes folks might get a little overwhelmed because it seems like there's so many things that you have to do to try to be like, quote unquote, a good water steward or a good environmentalist. And I kind of want to flip that on its head a little bit and say, there's so many wonderful things I can be doing. All I have to do is start with one. And I think you can get excited about the possibilities instead of overwhelmed by them, and just do what you can. And if you can do more, then great. I see a lot of people are leaving some good things in the chat, and someone had specifically asked about lead water filters as a temporary solution. And that had been answered about they can be helpful. It just has to be certified and can often be expensive. So it seems like having a functioning water system is obviously the goal, as opposed to everybody having individual lead filters. And then here's another question from Rhonda. So Cleveland has been ranked worst in the world for foreclosing on homes as a result of default on water bills. Can anyone speak to how their organization is working to address this issue?
Okay, I can field that question. The foreclosures aren't due to water or sewer bills being on property taxes. You have to basically be in default on the home on your taxes, not just for that. You cannot lose your home by being in default for water and sewer bills. Water and sewer bills, you will not be foreclosed on.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I didn't know the particulars, so thanks for enlightening me too, Pauletta.
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of things that are on a property tax bill, but it has to be a combination of things in addition to. So I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. And that just speaks to how so much of these issues are intertwined. Like you need strong utilities, but you also need a good housing stock and good jobs so that people can afford to stay in those homes. That makes a lot of sense.
I'd just like to follow up a little bit on what Paula was saying. She's absolutely right. And if somebody winds up with having a problem of not being able to pay on their mortgage temporarily or whatever it is, Cuyahoga County has been pretty good about giving advice to people so they can save their homes. I was at legal aid for many years and worked in that area trying to help people save their homes. And I never found a home that I couldn't save. There were programs available and people could make payments and take care of even the tax bills. So if anybody feels like they've got a problem with the house, don't try to hide it away. Head for these places that can help you, like legal aid.
And just to speak to that as well, I think that's really powerful, Joseph. And, if there's one action that I hope people take away from this in terms of how they can advance water equity in the Northeast Ohio community, it's to talk about these affordability programs and that they're out there and that they're available and that you can sign up for them. Because I know there are barriers for some folks in terms of who's eligible to sign up, but there are a lot of eligible people who aren't signed up currently. And it's probably because they're not aware, or maybe there's stigma in participation. but just getting the word out that these things are available and there are ways that, people can save money in the community. That's money that can go towards paying other bills, that can go towards paying the mortgage. And there's a lot of folks in our community who can use any money they can get, right? So I think that's tremendously important. And I think the work that the sewer district and Cleveland Water and the other utilities have been doing with these utility fairs to try and get this more out into the community, the work the water champions are doing, it's all really important. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of people that need to know about this. So anytime, you can talk to people about this, that can be something that's really helpful.
Yeah, this conversation about like what you can do individually, but also keeps talking about conservation and housing. It just makes me think about knowing how you use your water is important, right? So water and sewer rates are tied directly to your usage, how much water you use. So we have an online tool, my.clevelandwater.com. If you create an account, you can see your usage. We have smart meters that enable us. You can see your usage down to the hour. So that can be really important when, like, I know I've had this problem in the summer. Suddenly I'm using, 1,000 more gallons a month than I used to. Well, why is that? Let's think about this. I had a leaking outdoor faucet, and that's money in your wallet. Leaks make a huge impact. If water goes through your meter, it's going to get billed. But if you can pay attention to your water usage, and even if you don't have an online account on your bill, we print out your month by month usage so you can see the difference. At least then you have a starting place to be like, okay, do I have a toilet that's running? Do I have something dripping? And that is truly knowledge is power. Now you can adjust your use, which is going to have a direct impact on your bill. And people in older homes who have poor plumbing, this is definitely a struggle, and a place to look at is how can, we have a plumbing repair program with CHN where, change out the plumbing. Let's find those leaks. Let's fix it so that we can reduce your water usage and directly affect your bill.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I will say, so someone in the chat had asked about if Cleveland has a curbside compost. We don't. We do have some community gardens that do composting, like in our old Brooklyn neighborhood, that kind of has like a neighbor to neighbor program. Rust Belt Riders operates throughout the city, but it's all pick up and drop off. So it's in addition to what you would pay your trash removal bill. The only place I've seen personally that has like curbside the same way that they have trash and recycling is San Francisco. And I'm jealous, but I will say also, Cleveland, the city of Cleveland took a big step in getting commercial composting at our West Side Market location. So food that might not be sold and can't be redistributed would go into their compost. And I hope that's just a first step. I truly, really hope that. But I'm glad that they started it. I want to bring Max back in because I want to talk. We've been talking so much about residential, and I really would want to talk about what water usage looks like at this big institutional level. And we think about what a manufacturer uses in water is so dwarfs anything any of our individual homes would do. And I know Cleveland Water Alliance is trying to work with different organizations to see if there's a way that they can meet a certain standard for their water usage, whether it's what they're emitting chemically from it or just the amount of water that's going into their processes.
Yeah, for sure. So, we work with a lot of folks in industry at Cleveland Water Alliance, and, a big focus for us are those folks that are innovating within the water space, that are creating the sensors and pumps and pipes and treatment processes that allow us to have clean water that folks at Cleveland Water and the sewer district are using. But we also work with water intensive industries and talking to folks that are currently here in the Northeast Ohio region or are thinking about locating here, to talk to them about how they can be the most responsible water users they can be, so that those companies and factories that are leveraging really large quantities of fresh water in their processes are not discharging toxic chemicals into our environment, things that can exacerbate a lot of the historical pollution that we have in this region as a Rust Belt city. But also thinking about those folks as, additive, I guess, to the support base of the utilities, because industries are folks that also pay Cleveland Water for the water that they use and pay Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District for treatment. And that can be a way perhaps to defray some of the costs that falls on everyday residents to support that infrastructure, especially considering the proportion of those resources that industry leverages.
Awesome. Yes, thank you.
The thing that Cleveland Water Alliance is great as is marketing the water as an economic development tool. I mean, it's here, and I'm not saying dry it up by any means, but we, like, as a drinking water treatment, we have the capacity, we have the infrastructure to treat more. So I was just talking with somebody about Intel being located in the middle of Ohio and the utilities there being like, how are we going to deal with this? Whereas if you plop down a water intensive industry in Cleveland with water only perspective, but the infrastructure is there and we could supply it to you. Just another perspective.
And I think, so for those on the line who aren't not necessarily familiar with what Cleveland Water Alliance does, they work a lot with innovators who are trying new technologies to figure out ways that we can preserve like water quality. So for example, like imagine sensors that can tell you before, like that all the conditions are right for a harmful algal bloom, or that there's a certain amount of like runoff that's contributing to water quality. Or in other cities, like I know Patrick had on the line had asked about New York. New York uses, they use like an innovative testing method to figure out how many people have COVID in the city using wastewater. And they test their wastewater, and that's how they do it. And so Cleveland Water Alliance is kind of, I don't want to put words in Max's mouth, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but it's this platform that looks at how we can use fresh water and have innovation in that can further like our economy, and also further the economy in ways that are like, that preserve our water assets. Okay, I don't see it, Max.
Talk about a smart lake, Max.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. So, we talked a bit about the industry engagement side of things and how we want to work with, innovators and established industries that are developing new technologies that can help us maintain and improve the quality of our water resources. A big part of that has been really large investments in monitoring infrastructure across Lake Erie and its watersheds in partnership with utilities like Cleveland Water. We've been deploying buoys at drinking water intakes and across the lake to monitor for water quality issues like harmful algal blooms to ensure that Liz's team has the information that they need to be treating the water so that we never have any sort of repeat of the 2014 Toledo water crisis, where they just weren't aware that Toledo drinking water folks had the technology to deal with harmful algal blooms, but just weren't aware that the bloom was getting into their intake until it was too late. And, we want to make sure that never happens again. We're also working to deploy sensors across watersheds. And I think, an aspect of water management that we haven't really talked too much about yet, but I know that the sewer district and many stakeholders across Northeast Ohio, like Cleveland Metro Parks, are very involved in, is this watershed management side of things. And there really is a lot of need for data to understand how water is moving across our landscape, how it's moving through our streams and rivers, and when there's risk for flooding, for toxins to be pulled off of the land by rainwater and brought into our water resources, and where there's need for restoration and conservation practices to really help improve our water quality. And these are things that residents can also get engaged in. We work to coordinate a whole host of volunteer programs, including here locally, one convened by Cleveland Metro Parks and the Cuyahoga Soil Water Conservation District that monitor local water resources. So, we come at water innovation from a lot of different perspectives. Some of them are more relevant to equity impacts than others, but, between engaging with industry, engaging with research, and then, working with the utilities, we're hoping that, we can continue to conserve and improve the quality of our water resources while also leveraging them, as Liz and Courtney said, as sort of an economic development asset.
I had a question, maybe either Max or Liz or Pauletta could answer. About half of our water in the house is used in the bathroom, all sorts of things. One of the main ones is, of course, flushing the toilet. And I've been to countries, I won't get too deep into this unless somebody really wants it, but I have seen how they use human waste. And I was wondering, what happens to the human waste that go through our system? Do we in any way have a use for that? Or is that just something that really clogs up everything and the only thing you can do is find a deep hole in Lake Erie?
It's incinerated at our wastewater treatment plants. That's a good question though, because a lot of people really don't know what happens, but we do incinerate the waste. So it's, we've even had people that have called and asked, could they get some for their garden? So I won't go into detail with that, but yeah. But it is incinerated.
Oh my gosh, I love the turn that this took.
Yeah.
I was curious too, to be honest. I had no idea. So I know we're coming up on time a little bit, and so I wanted to just ask one question to everybody, and that's if let's say folks wanted to make a career out of the stuff that you work on, what kind of like job skills or training or even just mindset that they would have to be involved in your different organizations and the work that you do?
We're always looking for people. Number one is pipe repair workers. That doesn't require a degree. We have an apprenticeship program with Cleveland Metropolitan School District where kids who aren't interested in a 4-year degree can come with that, work for us. They're an employee from day one, and they train for a year on how to be the people who are out in the field fixing main breaks, repairing fire hydrants, repairing valves. That's a big one. It's a STEM heavy field. I mean, we have engineers, we have chemists, water treatment plant operators, the people who kind of manage our treatment plants are also kind of in demand because we have to have one on staff 24/7, 365. There is no rest for treating water, and that has its own that's another one where you don't necessarily need a college degree, but there is training provided by industry organizations and through Ohio EPA. It's math heavy, it's science heavy, but I think it's a way that people who are interested in that are like more receptive than traditional education.
Okay, I can hop in for the sewer district. We have a multitude of careers based on your experience and education levels. We have everything from internships to fellowships, and we also do employee training. We have our operations department. We have our science in the labs. We have maintenance. We have inspections. And also don't forget customer service, security and law. So there are a lot of different jobs, human resources. So it's a multitude of jobs, wastewater treatment facility operators. It's just a multitude. And once a person gets employed with the district, then they also have opportunity to train for, other areas as well. And we also have something called the Good Neighbor Ambassador Program, which we employ in the neighborhoods that we're doing projects in. And we have cohorts, every year where people come in to learn more about the district and also maybe even become people that work at the district. I currently have 2 individuals from this Good Neighbor Ambassador Program that have that are working with me currently. So there's a lot of opportunity. And, you know, if you just go to our website, NEORSD.org, and look under careers, you can look at the job descriptions as well as and I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And I have to imagine that some of those same qualities are probably good for your program, Robin, with your ambassadors.
Yes. Yes, I would say the same thing with our Water Champions, but we also have other programs at that CHN by it being a nonprofit. So there are just a lot of programs that we do. We have a rental assistance program. They're always looking for people to apply for that as well. HEAP, we administer the state's HEAP program. So we're always looking for people to apply for our program. So you can look at our website, www.chnhousingpartners.org, to see the various jobs and opportunities that we have.
And I would just say, you know, on top of the really robust career path kind of jobs that, or about, I guess, the really robust career path jobs that, you know, utilities like Cleveland Water and Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District offer, it is really remarkable that a number of them don't require a degree past high school, and that in and of itself can be a really big equity opportunity in a community where there aren't a lot of well-paying career-oriented jobs that you can get coming from that kind of perspective. So I think that, you know, it's really tremendously valuable and something that a story that we want to be telling. I'd also just say, you know, from the Cleveland Water Alliance perspective, we really want to push the idea that water is an opportunity for innovation and entrepreneurship, that you can start a business around water treatment, around water monitoring, around the data analytics and management in this space. And that's something that, you know, we are working to support through, you know, innovation, cultivation, and competitions, but also we're getting to the point now where we're starting a seed fund to invest in ventures in this space. And so it really is an exciting time to kind of work in water.
Great. And then Joseph, I know it's Utilities for All is a little bit different in that you provide legal aid. So obviously it's a legal background needed, but are there any other sorts of,
Utilities for All has about 50 prime members in it. They come from a variety of different backgrounds. Some are lawyers, most are not. Most are really just very hardworking, dedicated advocates. So anyone is free to join. We pay tremendous salaries. I mean, you can't believe this. No, there's no salary structure or anything like that. It's all volunteer. And I happen to be a little bit older maybe than some other people, but every time I have a meeting with them and I hear all their ideas and all their youthful enthusiasm, I immediately lose 10 years of my life. And I'm so grateful for that. So if that's a payment you want of becoming younger and more vibrant, join us at Utilities for All.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I think we're going to end there to be respectful of everyone's time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of our panelists. The work you're doing is so valuable. You're so valuable in our community. Thank you for taking time to speak with us too and give us a little bit of insight into your world. And then thank you everyone else for attending. I believe we'll be posting the recording of this. Elena, I'll let you handle that piece.
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to be putting in the chat 3 links. One is to our YouTube channel. So we will be posting this recording. Last week's Shaping the Future of Transportation is already up on our YouTube. Eventbrite will also be listed because we'll be doing future events. Our next one is Shaping the Future of Land Use on October 20th. So again, always Thursdays on Zoom from 6 to 7 p.m. and free. We just ask that you register ahead of time. And FreshWater Cleveland is working on articles following all of these webinars. So they're working on a transportation article and we'll be writing one on water health and equity on this topic. So there are lots of links for you to follow. But if you get lost in all of that, you just know to email shapers.cleveland.com, which I will also put in the chat, and we will link you to the right resources. And I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. And we have this space till about 7:30 or so. So if you want to stay on and chat with us, I'll be on for a few minutes. Feel free. Otherwise, have a good rest of your evening. Thank you, everyone.